Hi everyone, it's Brittany of BZ Art, and today I'm going to show you how to make my whale shark pattern. This pattern is available from my website for $9. And I do have some people ask me pretty regularly why my patterns cost money, so I just wanted to take a second to address that. So my patterns generally take me anywhere from a week to a month to create. It's a time-consuming process, and it's not something that I'd be able to do if I weren't getting paid for it. So if you like my patterns, if you want to see more of them, if you like these videos, please consider actually purchasing the pattern and supporting me so I can keep doing this. And just as a general reminder, like before all of my videos, I do have birds in the craft room, and they're right behind me. You might hear them moving around, making some noise. Hopefully no screaming today. So if you hear some noises, that's what that is. And if you want to learn more about my craft room birds, there's actually a video about them now, which I will link. Okay, so to get started with the whale shark pattern, you're going to want to place the two side pieces together. This whale shark is super easy and definitely something I recommend for beginners. On my pattern, I usually use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but personally I just trace on the exact sewing line and I leave about 1/8 of an inch. It's not super exact, I just cut really loosely around it. So anyway, place the two side pieces together and you're going to start right at this nose here and sew all the way down to this tail right here. Now if you're having trouble with this slipping around, you might want to pin it. I don't usually pin my stuff much. I will pin the belly on though. The pinning just helps when you're sewing Minky to keep it from sliding about, make sure everything stays lined up nicely. So you're going to stop at this mark at the end of the tail here. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to trim the excess seam allowance. You could also just clip it along the curves, but this is just what I prefer to do. And removing this excess seam allowance or clipping it is what will allow your plushie to turn right side out without any bulging or odd wrinkles or folds on the lines or on the seam lines, and it will help everything just look a lot nicer, help the curves push out more. If you're using a stretchier fabric, you might not even need to do this. It's just habit for me at this point. Alright, so now we're going to take a body piece and we're going to line it up with these side pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure all of the fins are nicely aligned, and then I'm going to pin them. Alright, came unpinned. So now that this is pinned, you belly onto your side, you're going to start, I'm going to start right here at the end of this fin, and I'm going to sew around. This nose area, you want to make sure that this is pulled up so it's touching the front of this curve here. If it's too far back, it's not going to get sewn up. That's something that can happen sometimes as the Minky slides around. when I get to this end point here at the belly where it meets the tail, I'm going to go ahead and stop. And then I'm going to flip the tail under this way. And this is just so that I'm not accidentally sewing that tail up into the seam here. So then I'm just going to restart on the exact same point. I'm going to sew around this fin. And when I get to the other side of the fin here, I'm going to stop and leave this section of the belly open so that we can turn the plushie right side out. Alright, so once again, I'm just going to trim all my excess seam allowance. I have some areas where it kind of slid around a bit, but that's okay. With this whale shark, like I said, it's an easy pattern, and it's very forgiving of mistakes. It's not going to like curl up or look weird or anything if you have just a little bit off on some sides. Alright, so now that that's done, I'm going to insert my safety eyes. So for the safety eyes, I'm using a pair of 15mm eyes, I believe. You can use bigger or smaller ones. This is just, the sizes I get for my eyes are just a general guide. If you want bigger eyes or smaller eyes, it's not going to make a difference to the plush. Alright, so for the eyes, you should have marked where they go on the pattern, like I've done here. If you want them higher, you want to put them on the body side. If you want them lower, you can put them on the belly side. You don't want to put them exactly on the seam because this runs the risk of you accidentally snipping that seam thread and your plushie might come undone at the eyes. So I'm just going to go just above that seam there and make a little snip for my eye. Do the same on the other side. And now we're going to, thank you, Lemon. We're going to insert the eyes through the hole. Push the posts out. You see I'm kind of struggling to push this out through this hole. That's okay. You want the hole to be like as small as you possibly need it. You don't want it to be too large or it might push the safety eye will be able to push it open and it could come off the edge. It could leave an opening. It's not a good thing. You don't want it larger than you need. If you do accidentally make it larger than you need though, you can always put a little bit of fabric glue or sew a few stitches here and pull it tight like you're gathering to keep the eyes secure. Anyway, then you just push the post through on the back. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat this with the other safety eye. And then something I like to do, you don't need to do this, but I prefer it, as I snip the excess post off the safety eye. If you look at the safety eye, it has ridges that keep the washer from coming off, and I just leave an extra ridge and then I snip just after that with a pair of wire cutters. And this just helps the post lay a little bit flatter in the plush. Sometimes really long or really thick posts can kind of push the safety eye out farther than you want it to because it's pushing against the stuffing instead of going into it. So this is just a personal preference, like I said. And I'm going to take a pair of hemostats. I always get questions about these. Hemostats are a surgical supply tool. They're usually used in surgery. They have a locking ability, so if I pinch down and I push here, it will lock these in place. And so what I'm doing is I'm just grabbing the fabric from the inside and pulling it out. And this will help all of these fins pulled out nicely. And I'm just going through and I'm grabbing each fin and I'm pulling it to make it right side out. And then I'm going to go ahead and pinch the front of the face and pull the whole thing. Alright, so from the front side, what we're going to do is we're going to top sew where the fin meets the body, and what this will do is it will separate the fin so that when we stuff the body, the fins won't get stuffed and they'll stay nice and flat and floppy. If you prefer them stuffed, you can skip this step, but I prefer them like this. Sewing machine didn't quite cut that thread. It happens sometimes. Now, if you're having trouble guessing exactly where these lines are going to go, you can use an air-soluble marking pen. I believe that I recommend one of these in the pattern instructions. So what these are is they're just these little markers. You can get them at the fabric stores, craft stores, and they'll say air and water soluble. And they're generally purple. And you just draw right where you want it to be, and then eventually this will just fade. If you want it to fade faster, you can run it underwater. It's not going to hurt the fabric. Even on white, you won't see it once it's gone. So once we've done all of these, what I'm going to go ahead and do is go in and snip all these extra threads. And then you're ready to stuff your whale shark. So to stuff it, you're going to want to use little pieces of stuffing like this. If you use really big fluffs, it tends to bunch up and cause lots of clumps in your plushie. So you're going to want to use little chunks, and you just kind of press them in place up against the last one you put in or into the corners. And by doing this, you're going to have a nice, much more evenly stuffed plushie. I like to stuff the whale shark pretty firmly, just because over time it will kind of compact and become less firm. Whereas if you stuff it very loosely to begin with, it's going to end up pretty much flat within the next 6 months if it sees some heavy love. Especially if you sleep with your plushies, tend to roll over them and flatten them and stuff in your sleep. So I start with the tail, and then I'm going to do the face and kind of work my way from each side towards the middle where my opening is. And you can see as I stuff, I'm kind of shaping it the way that I want it to be. Alright, so once your plushie is stuffed to your liking, we can go ahead and close up this seam. And I'm just going to take the same white thread that I used to sew it. And then I just have a cloth thimble that I've covered with some duct tape to help it fit my finger better. I'm sorry, it's not cloth, it's leather. Found some string I missed. So to do a ladder stitch, which is the stitch we're going to use to close this, you insert the needle from the inside of the plush to the outside. Oops, put my hemostats. Alright, and you pull it through. And then what you're going to do is you're going to push the needle in through the outside and then push it right back out again. And I'm just sort of pulling this loosely closed. And repeat this process of pushing it in and directly back out from the right side of the fabric. And you'll see as we go, we're sort of making these rungs on either side of the seam, and that's why it's called a ladder stitch. I don't know how well you can see those, but they're there, trust me on this one. So then after I go about halfway, I like to pull this nice and tight, and then finish up the rest of the seam. Again, I'm pulling it nice and tight, and then I'm going to go ahead and tie off a knot. And I like to double knot the end of all my seams to keep them from coming undone. Alright, and so to hide this end of your thread, you're going to go ahead and poke the needle back in directly at the knot and push it out at any random point in your plush. And then what you're going to do is you're going to squish the plush down, and then you're going to trim the thread right there. And when the plush pops back up, the thread will be hidden inside of it. And there you go. You have your finished whale shark. So, yep, this is a very quick, very easy plush. I hope that this tutorial helps you guys out, and I hope that you make a ton of cute whale sharks. Thanks for watching!